Improvisation, I think, is so essential to having a well-rounded musical life.
Learning music can feel really scary. The amount of music theory we think we have to learn, the amount of practice we feel like we have to put into it can be very daunting.
I mean, one of the biggest delusions about music is that there's consequences. It's only music.
In this video, I'm going to talk about why improvisation is one of the key elements of music education and why it's so important for everyone who's getting into music to improvise.
Improvisation basically is simply motion. It precedes musical knowledge or understanding about anything.
That's the best lesson you can learn, that it would be better to play and sound terrible than to think of this as some kind of test that you can pass and fail. That's a real perversion of the gift of music.
Music is something that's been with us arguably for millennia. And even if there was no music as an art form per se, we probably expressed ourselves through sound before we even invented language. And so this idea that music is something that you need to master first and then you're allowed to do it, I think it's very harmful. But how can you get into improvisation? How can you start?
Probably the best exercise I can think of is, to tell my students to open up their mouth and sing for 10 minutes, which it's unbelievable how difficult that is to do for a lot of people.
Minute or 2 minutes in, you're probably going to hate yourself. You're probably going to start hearing inner voices, start hearing all sorts of judgments or ideas that this doesn't make sense, this is too weird, I'm off tune, I probably sound horrible.
You're going to want to stop. Your entire being, your body is going to be screaming, stop, let me off of this,
Right.
And I tell them to fight all the tendencies to stop. Do it every day for about 3 weeks and see what happens.
Now you might ask, but if I only improvise, I will never get good on the instrument, right? Like, I will never learn all the scales, all the necessary skills and theory and technique that is necessary to really become good at something. So I want to offer you a distinction here between practice and play. When you play, you want to suspend all the judgment, suspend all the calculation, and just focus on the expression. That's why the improvisation is such a key part for this.
Your job when you play is to love what you play, not to judge it.
You want to almost have this childish mindset, being as the child, hearing the sound of your guitar, sound of the resonating string. For the first time, you want to be curious, why is it moving this way and what happens if I press the finger here? What we admire the most about the best performers we see out there is they're not second-guessing themselves, they're not judging themselves when they're on the stage. When you practice, on the other hand, you want to literally use different part of your brain.
There's a certain part of the brain that's perfect for practicing, and a certain part of the brain is perfect for playing. And never the twain shall meet. When you mix practicing and playing, you corrupt both states.
Whenever we overjudge ourselves when we play, or whenever we feel like improvisation is impossible for us, we could summarize it by saying that we're probably using the wrong mode of attention. We're using the wrong hemisphere, so to speak. The left hemisphere that is for the conceptual thinking is too loud and overshadowing the comfort with unknown that the right hemisphere is really good for.
It's a difference in attention. This is the special gift of the left hemisphere. It can focus in on tiny details in very sharp focus that are what you're interested in already. But the difficulty with this is that you're not seeing the rest of the picture, all the rest that's going on. You've got to be understanding what's going on around you, and that takes a quite different kind of attention, which is broad, open, sustained, vigilant attention, whereas the left hemisphere is locked onto a detail of something it already knows what it is, and it knows it wants it. So that's the basis of the difference.
So this is ultimately why I think improvisation should be bigger, much bigger part of our music education. It shouldn't be left for later, once we know the scales, once we know the specific amount of theory, and once we can play. Because improvisation is a specific skill that connects us with the implicit skill of music understanding that cannot be found in books, and shifts your attention from thoughts and from propositional knowing. This is a concept from John Vervaeke.
You know things by having beliefs about propositions. Like, I believe that cats are mammals. There we go. That's propositional knowing. I believe that, and here's a proposition. You also have a different kind of knowing. You have procedural knowing, which is knowing how to do something. This is your ability to coordinate very complex, multiple simultaneous variables in your sensory motor interaction with the world. Like when I catch a ball or I ride a bike, I know how to do it.
If you ever meditated, you know that you sit down and you observe your mind and the thoughts that arise and try and let them go. And this is very similar. You're trying to express something from within without categorizing it, but the thoughts will necessarily come up. The thoughts will necessarily occur and try and ruin it for you. Just notice them and let them float away. And this skill needs to be done non-propositionally. It needs to be practiced. It needs to be tried. It needs to be tested, savored, and explored and experienced. So to demonstrate this and to drop the talk, I'm going to take this hulusi I got from my wife's mom. I never played this instrument. I don't know a single song on it. I don't know what each note is. I'm going to just make some sounds on it and see what happens. Wow. So it was a very interesting experience. I was just putting fingers randomly to cover these holes. I mean, I've played a recorder in the past, so I kind of knew that I needed to cover those, but just kind of trying, breathing, putting my fingers in random places and hearing what's happening and just going with it was a very interesting experience. And so I recommend to try it either with your voice, with the instrument of choice, piano, guitar, violin, whatever you guys like. If you're into music or you want to get into music, improvisation and performance, please subscribe for more content like this. On my channel you can find a bunch of analysis and reactions to music performances, to great improvisers, performers and artists, but also videos like this one where I break down music from a more philosophical perspective and interconnect different disciplines. If you're struggling with some of those limiting beliefs that all musicians have, I created a checklist of the most common ones, so you can download that for free in the description. Try and improvise, sing, play, make sounds. If it stresses you that someone's listening to you, you can start with a comfortable setting somewhere behind the closed doors, but force yourself to express yourself. It's going to be fundamentally transforming for you. It doesn't work for all people, but I feel sometimes it's better than therapy, because these feelings and traumas can be very implicit, and language sometimes cannot capture it quite so well, because a lot of these can be created before we even know language. So try that out, improvise, let me know what you think, and as I always say on this channel, keep it funky.